Reb Lozer showed Reb Shimon Reb Lozer is asking his father. He says like this: Hi Yoima, this day, the day of Yom Kippur, and the day of forgiveness. Amai Bahai Asar Tolu, the day of forgiveness is coming from the sphera called Bina. Bina means understanding. And the level of understanding is a level that is before the attributes. It's above the midas. The Bina belongs to the moichin, belongs to the part that is calculating the reality. It belongs to the part that's understanding, interpreting reality. So Bina is a function of the heart. The heart interprets based on its own interest, and that becomes its understanding. This is on the individual level. So the collective Bina represents all the drawings, the collective imagination. So for example, our shape, the way that we're manifested in order to become three-dimensional. This is a function of the imagination. The Father, the Chachma, the wisdom, is the one that designed our function. But our look and our colors, these are coming from the collective imagination. This belongs to the Bina, the understanding. She's called the mother. The Father, the wisdom. This is also on the individual level. The wisdom, all the information, everything that you know, everything that's available to you is your wisdom, including all your cells and all the processes to how to run them, all the organs, everything is part of your wisdom. And then Bina, your understanding. Okay, so what does it mean to you? What are you going to make of all that information? And that includes creating the entire body and all the details, all based on the instruction from above, from the collective. Every individual is representing the collective. And so he's asking his father, why are we doing it to this place and not to another place? What's the other place? The Yusil Meheve the Malkishur, we should be interacting with the king. So we have the father, we have the mother. Then there's the king. The king is the collective intelligence that's responsible for the attributes, the emotions. So the mother, the understanding, gives birth to emotions. So whatever the heart does with the information, whatever the interpretation becomes, it manifests a reaction called emotion. And that is a specific frequency, a movement of energy that's going to result in what's going to happen next. So this is how the chain connects. The information, the understanding, and then comes forth the reaction, the emotions, the attributes. And then it goes forth in order to react on the practical level in thought, speech, and action. So from the feelings will come forth thought, speech, and action that are the result of the response, the result of the emotions. And this is called the Malchus. This is already the intelligence that's taking action. Things are happening. The level of information, the level of understanding, the level of the emotions, all are hidden. All of them are only known from the Malchus, from whatever happens in manifestation. From within the manifestation, we can find the parts that went into this manifestation, what was activated. And so Reb Lozer is asking, why are we going to the level of understanding? Our problem is with the king, with the emotions. There's anger, there's resistance. Why aren't we healing through there? We should be healing by creating love. We should be healing by creating positive emotions. Why are we going above the emotions to the mother? The way that it is the way that it's supposed to be. However, your question is a good one, meaning you're thinking in the right direction, but you're missing some information. Tochazi. Malke Kadisha Shoveke Chole Beise Bido de Maternisa. The Holy King, he left his hall, his house, in the hands of the queen. Vishovak Livnoi Ima, and he left his son with her. Begin Ledabroloin, Ilalkoloin, Ilemishri Begavai. So he gave the queen the house, and in the house is the son. In order that the queen should lead the son and give him the appropriate instructions and give him the appropriate punishments if necessary. And the Izochon, if this experiment works, then the queen, she comes out looking very good in the eyes of the king. There's a lot of happiness. She becomes precious because she managed to run the house and direct the son, and everything is in accordance with the will of the king. If things don't work out, then the king sends the mother together with the son into exile. So what he's saying is, the wisdom has designed the world to be in a specific way. And when the emotions are aligned with the wisdom, then the imagination is drawing beautiful images, and the wisdom is pleased. On the collective level, if the emotions of humanity are in line with what the wisdom that designed humanity intended for them to feel and experience, then the events of life will be beautiful. The same goes on the individual level. If your emotions are in line with your wisdom, your imagination will draw beautiful images. Your body will draw beautiful experiences. But what happens when the emotions go out of line? And there again, the wisdom cannot agree with these emotions. These emotions offend the wisdom. The imagination is going to follow the emotions, not the wisdom. The imagination is going to be kicked out from the palace. Now the imagination is drawing realities that are offensive to the wisdom. The wisdom can no longer reside. The wisdom can no longer come to visit his own palace. The king is no longer welcome in his own palace because his wife and his son have ganged up against him. First the son, and the wife follows. And this is what the pasuk says, Mishadid of Yavriach Em. One who robs the father, he makes the mother have to run away. One who robs the wisdom, everything belongs to the wisdom. One who robs the wisdom, he uses the forces that were created against the wisdom. He makes the imagination run away from reality. The imagination is now drawing images that belong to a guilty one because the wisdom has been offended. The father is no longer home. By your ignorance, by your going against your own interests, you caused your mother to be sent away. This is talking to humanity. Humanity, you have forgotten how you function. You've run away from wisdom. And because you've run away from wisdom, your imagination is drawing things that do not exist. And you're serving those images as if they're real. You're giving them life, you're feeding them. But they're not real. We're making them real. What's running the world today are images, drawings that are not real, they're demonic. Greed, corruption, all demonic. And so the imagination gets sent away into exile. The imagination is drawing images about the creator and about creation that have nothing to do with reality. They're not reality, they're based on a false premise. They're based on the premise that greed and corruption are part of reality. Greed and corruption are not part of reality. Greed and corruption is a human invention. It doesn't belong on this planet. It's not within our nature. It offends our nature. It is never a result of wisdom. It offends wisdom. Valdu, for this reason, is Yom Echad B'Shate, there's one day in the year, La'ashgacho Behi, La'ayna Behi, to take the time to look back and to really analyze. When this day comes, Ima Eloi, the Chol Chayri B'Yidu, the mother from up high, that all freedom is in her hands. All freedom is in her hands. Everything you've ever suffered from is a form of lack of freedom. And all freedom is in the hands of the mother. Whatever you imagine, you experience. If you're free to imagine whatever you want, then nobody can make you experience anything you don't want. The imagination is before the emotions. The imagination causes the emotions. If the imagination caused a different interpretation, the emotions that we are struggling with wouldn't even be tempting us in the first place. The story would be different. So the imagination has all the freedom because it's not like with the emotions where you have to come with a counter argument. You have to wake up a different energy. You have to do some work in order to change the perspective. When it comes to understanding, the understanding can remove the problem, can remove the emotion, can remove the basis of the emotion to make you realize that it was never there. It was simply magic. It was achizat einaim. It seemed to be based on wrong information. That's what understanding can do, that emotions cannot do. That's what the mother can do, that the king cannot do. The mother can explain the situation in a way where there is no problem. And so all freedom are in the hands of the mother. And therefore, on this day, the mother comes, is Daman Lekible Listakla B'Yisrael. This is the time where we wake up our understanding. We try to understand again. Hang on. I want to go back to square one. Explain to me again exactly what happened. I was a bit distracted for the last few decades. Let's start over. Tell me again. Tell me the story from the beginning. What exactly is taking place? So the mother comes. V'Yisrael is the Rosi Bahayom Bekama Pilchonin Bekama Tzuloisim Bekama Enian Klalisol is not sitting on their hands. They are doing rituals. They're doing prayers. They're doing different things to their body that usually they would willingly engage in, and now they're not engaging in those things. Kilu b'schisa, all in order to awaken their innocence. all in order to remember their innocence, all in order to create angels that will counteract those who want to say differently. Kedain is the man li chayri masad chol chayri. Then they find in front of them the freedom from the source of all freedom. Bidu the maternisa, in the hands of the queen. Bnei malka benod, spoke them bidu, kili zakon, kili belochotin b'chevin. So all the children of the king that the queen is taking care of are all pure, all innocent. There's no guilt. There's nothing that stands between them and the desire to do it right. And this is all that's necessary is a full and complete desire to do it right. That's what repentance means. Every process of repentance is to get you to a place where you are fully committed to doing it right. So that there's not a single part of you that still thinks that there's something wrong with you, because that part is going to sabotage everything. And so here the king comes and he sees his children when they're pure. He sees that they recognize. He sees that they're fully committed. There's nothing standing between them and doing it right. If what's right was revealed in that moment, they would do it fully and never look back. Kedain is davgas. Kedain matanisa olas legavamal. Kedain, the queen comes to the king. Now that the queen has been consulted with and everybody is back in line, everything is the way that it was meant to be, now it's time to come to the king. She comes shining with pride, with happiness, with a complete desire. Is because she's raised children to the king like is appropriate. The king, the wisdom, the power that creates, the power that is the first manifestation of the life force that is beyond any level of perception. The keter, the source, the desire that cannot be known, comes forth through wisdom because it desires a certain reality on this planet. That wisdom, the wisdom of the one that has the desire, is the father of everything that's going to come forth from there. That wisdom is B'Tselem Elohim, the same Tselem that we've inherited after many, many levels of the energy becoming more and more formed, more and more design, more and more detail, until it became us. But this same form, it's the form of our potential. Our actual being is somewhat distant from that form because our actual being has come very far away from its potential. For thousands of years, we have managed to disappoint our potential. And yet that potential lives. That potential is the only thing that lives. Our disappointment doesn't live. Our disappointment is a lack of life. That potential lives to the extent that we let it live. And that potential is trying to become, and it will become. It has to become. However, the mother, the level of that wisdom that actually manifested in order to create what we know as reality, that mother can only be proud when the creation is in accordance with the desire of the Father. The Father is the wisdom of the one that desired life to exist. We can only give pride to creation when we represent the children that we're intended to be. Until then, the wisdom does not reside in us. What does it look like when the wisdom does not reside in us? It looks like chaos. It looks like a reality that makes no sense. And that's because the mother is away from the father. Things are happening, the mother is here. The imagination is drawing, things are going, but it's not attached to the wisdom, it's attached to our derailed emotions. And so on this day we go back, on this day we return. It's not about how I feel, it's not about my emotions. Reality is bigger than my emotions. My emotions were given to me so that I can navigate reality, but the one navigating reality is beyond the emotions. It's about understanding what is the real nature of what's taking place. On the emotional level, we might feel very guilty. But if we'll analyze, if we'll understand, if we'll know what's really happening, then we'll recognize that we can't be guilty. The wisdom that creates. And the results are what they are. This needs to be accepted and improved. And we're capable of doing that. We were created for that. We will only find peace when we recognize what really is. And what really is not going away. Our ideas, conceptions, beliefs are constantly changing. What really is never going away. What really is relates to the Father, to the wisdom that creates all. We want his input in our lives. We want that more than we want anything else. And we can gain it by aligning our attributes, aligning our emotions with what we conceive to be the best interest of reality, of ourselves, of humanity, of creation. We represent all of those. Everything we do represents that we did it as an individual, that we did it as a collective, and that we did it as a universe. All three of them are true. It's just a matter of how closely are we zooming in. So it says, people come to this day, everybody's going into the mood, into the zone. They're all creating that energy of purification and returning to our spiritual roots and discovering truth, and yet their hearts are not there. They don't really understand. They're not really returning to innocence. Sometimes maybe even the whole commotion makes them feel more guilty. So and then it's pity on those people. And then the imagination is going even further away from reality. The queen is being kicked out into further exile, together with her son. Under those circumstances, no freedom will be released. So now the imagination goes into the dark side. Now the emotions are being activated from the dark side. Pity on those people. Pity on those people, we might say. And unfortunately, those people and us people are too much intertwined. Pure and righteous are Klal Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is teaching them His way, begin so that they can be saved from judgment. So they can always be pure in front of Him. This is why the Pasuk says, on this day, He's going to cleanse you, He's going to clean you, to purify you. Another Pasuk says, I will spill upon you pure water. You'll be purified from all your impurities. So these pure waters, these are the waters of wisdom, the waters of love, waters that come from the right side, waters that create rejuvenation within the spirit. These waters allow for forgiveness. When a person is in a difficult situation, and while they're still suffering, we're asking them to forgive, it's extremely difficult. But all that changes in an instant as soon as that person is no longer suffering. Once someone is no longer suffering, you ask them to forgive. If they have Jewish attributes, if they have the appropriate attributes, they'll find a way to forgive. While they're still suffering, if they're on a high spiritual level, they forgave already before you came to ask. But if they're from the what we call normal culture, if they are part of the masses, while they're suffering, it's very difficult to forgive. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the one in charge of the attributes, is going to pour waters of purity, waters of kindness, waters of rejuvenation, waters that return us to our innocence. And suddenly we will realize that everything we thought was really so wrong with us was really the reason why we were so right. All the places where we were coming up into conflict with what seemed to be reality, our nature was right. The behaviors ingrained in society were wrong. That's the way it has to be. Because our nature was designed by someone far superior to the one who designed the customs of our behavior. And so, when these waters will come forth from the source, everyone will realize their innocence. And the world will return to its eternal childhood. May it happen soon.